So good morning from my side, and just to warn you, in 2 minutes I switch over to the German language, so please have your translation and headphones ready. But let me begin with a very warm welcome to Berlin, to all of you that traveled this long way. Thank you very much for making this journey. Today when I entered the building and I saw the colleagues, the friends, it was like a family meeting, kind of. And I hope this day will, Annalena just said it, will develop as that we have a very informal learning atmosphere here in this building. And thanks, Annalena. Thank you and your team for hosting this conference. Kindly, you announced me as co-host. That's true, we helped a little bit. Actually, the work is done by you and your team. And having said that, I mean, now we are here in beautiful dresses and wearing ties, the ones discussing here on the stage. The ministers, I hope with due respect, you know that the real work, the preparation was done by a lot of people that are not on the stage. And if you look into your schedules, into your arrangements, the journeys, you know how hard work it is. So maybe we should start the day with a round of applause for the ones unseen, but very, very important for this conference. So, due to the German media, I switch over to German. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, noch einmal herzlich willkommen
Thank you
in Berlin.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This conference is part of a history that unfortunately is often distorted by the many crises and diverted because of these crises that we also have to overcome. But it is a story that needs to continue to be told. It's the story, the most important story of the political, of our political times. This is about reconciling prosperity and climate action. To protect climate action is not just about protecting the climate, and Annalena has already told us about the consequences that we are threatened with if we don't manage to contain climate change. Hunger, catastrophes, and so forth, natural disasters. But what we are trying to do is not to protect the climate, as we say in German. It's about protecting humans and allowing them a life in dignity. And in times like these, I keep reiterating that this also means a free world order. It means not to have dictators and tyrants dictate history. This is what I mean when I talk about climate action, or as we say in German, climate protection. So for this reason, I would like to make a bridge from last year's meeting to this one, and to highlight 3 aspects that I would like to discuss with you today. First of all, we can see good progress. Annalena has already told us about it. So COP28 has been a success for climate action. It's also shown that even though countries have different interests, of course, countries producing natural gas have different interests from other countries. There's also the question of load sharing, burden sharing, and of historical responsibility for high carbon emissions. So there are many different viewpoints and reasonings. And it's not a foregone conclusion that these many different countries can reach an agreement. And this ambitious agreement is really pointing us forward. But nevertheless, I still need to point out that time is working against us. We all know that we're not working against a dynamism that is perhaps stronger than we were fearing. I'm deeply concerned by what's happening, and you've probably heard about it. I personally come from a town that is very close to the Baltic Sea, but there are other areas that are much more in danger. So you might have heard, or you will have heard, that the oceans of the world have heated up much more than we were expecting, and we can't understand why that is. So global warming and ocean warming is about to get out of control. And this, of course, has to do with the past and the mistakes made in the past. But it must really not discourage us from acting faster. So the oceans, as I said earlier, will continue to be here. Even they will adapt to a warmer world. So the oceans and ocean life, marine life, will probably have a terrible transition. Maritime life will change. Many plants and animals will die, but they will adjust. They will also expand. What should we do as humans? There will be storms, there will be hurricanes, there will be floods, and it will be very difficult to contain and to work with this. And I'm very concerned about it. And the mere graphics show us that this is not a game. This is not just something, a plaything for politicians who have nothing better to do. This is deeply serious. And our political generation needs to find a solution to this and implement these solutions. Because otherwise, everything else that we do will no longer matter and we will have failed. So this conference is important because it is one in a link and chain of conferences, and we need to contain global warming. Even though the news is dominated by other headlines, this is the most important topic. So it's good that you're all here and that you're working on this. A second point I'd like to make is that we spoke a lot about the crisis of the energy system. That was last year. So it was, of course, a crisis of prices and of availability. And this was something that hit us in Germany particularly hard. This is because we used to, we lost about 50% of our energy imports. And I have to thank you to support us. Well, unfortunately, this crisis is over. Germany is one of the industrial countries that invest 90% of its fossil fuels from other countries. So imports are very high, and we need to reduce this to around 30%. However, this 90% of fossil fuels is now secure. And we can see that prices are falling. The gas price is back to pre-crisis levels. Electricity prices in Europe are also dropping to the level where they were before the attack of Russia on Ukraine. So I think this is one task that we've successfully managed. Germany is also cashing in on its climate action efforts. So if we implement the legislation that has already been enacted, then Germany and Europe have a chance to meet their climate targets for 2030. I'm not saying this to show you how wonderful I am. I'm just telling you that despite the crisis, we are on track and we haven't forgotten about climate action. We have kept working on this. And Annalena and I and everyone in Germany know that change also goes hand in hand with conflict. Industrial production and prices are under pressure. And this means that the transformation, the transition, mean that we need dialogue as well. However, dialogue does not mean that everyone agrees, because that would not actually even be a dialogue. It means that you need to reconcile different perspectives, that you need to argue, that you need to look at potential solutions, that you also need to learn to accept that other people disagree. This is true in Germany, it's true in Europe and across the world. And if we have a successful day today, then that's what we can do. Then we'll understand why other regions choose to go down different routes. And we should do this in a pragmatic manner. I don't think that we'll be able to resolve this major task just by sticking to our own viewpoint and trying to force it upon others. This is not what this is about. And policy is not religion. There are other areas in life where you can live out that. Politics and policies are about being pragmatic. And we've seen progress on that in Germany and also in the world. The third point I would like to share with you has to do with this world. As I said earlier, Germany is a highly industrialized country. We have energy-efficient industries. And as I said earlier, we import 90% of our fossil fuels. And that makes up and we import a total of 70% of the energy we use. And of course, right now we've started to electrify areas, which means that fuels are used to generate electricity. We offer heat pumps for hydrogen, for other areas. And this is how we are reducing our dependency to 30%. So down from 90 to 30. That's the objective. And these new energies will, and this 30% will be renewables. It will be ammonia. It will be nitrogen. It will be hydrogen. And unlike this conference suggests, there's a reality that shows that nationalism is on the rise, that scope for action is becoming smaller, that international organizations are losing scope. Local content rules and customs barriers are being set up. And there may be some reasons for this, but overall and in combination, this is a very dangerous trend. We will only be successful if we stick together and if we have, roughly the same rule book across the whole world. And this is
Ammoniak, den Austausch von Technik und von Wissen nutzen, um diese gefährliche Tendenz der Fragmentierung von Räumen, wo Energie und
avoid this dangerous tendency of fragmentation, where you can abuse technology as a means of power. We need to overcome this. We're creating new markets, and today we'll speak a lot about import possibilities and so forth. So I'll have a few bilateral meetings today, and all of them will be about new markets. So let us create these markets for to create a global market and let's support each other and allow us to tap new energies and allow others to share in these, and let us export excess energy to other countries. Let's look at where we can find additional ways of trading energy. This is how we can generate prosperity for the world. It's a political task, and we are working against this global trend of nationalism. And this is another task that we need to master. I would also like to pick up on what the foreign minister said. I had a meeting with the young female leaders of some countries that will be represented here. I met with representatives from Burkina Faso, India, and Tunisia, but they are representatives of a whole group of countries. And we, in Germany, in the industrial nations, need to be careful. Over the past decades, we set the tone of world politics, and we must not be too sure of ourselves. And the small little stories that you told me were really just inspiring to me. In Africa and in India, renewables are not just about climate action. This is our viewpoint, from our Western viewpoint. It's about social stability. It's about participation, particularly of women, participation in education, in prosperity, in social visibility. It's about stabilizing rural areas. And it also means a way of increasing potential income. So climate action and prosperity are not mutually exclusive. This is an idea that we know from Germany, from the US, from Canada, and from Australia. Of course, climate action is something that these countries focused on, but these other countries, they can really use this to provide cheap energy to as many people as possible and give them access to prosperity. So it's great to have you here. Welcome to Berlin, and let's have a successful conference. Thank you.